My name is Napoleon Murphy Brock.
Don Preston.
It's a band that has two of the original Mothers of Invention and some of the other best musicians in the world. It's a formulated band like that. Two of the original Mothers of Invention, him and me, and three of the best musicians we could find in the world to accompany us and to be a part of this band. Yeah. We were part of the original Mothers of Invention.
The two of us were in a group that was like the
for the Roxy
on the
CD.
album.
For the Roxy CD, yeah.
Roxy and elsewhere, yeah.
Yeah. I started in October 1973 until 1977. I was there I started with, in the band was George Duke, Ruth Underwood, Tom Fowler, Bruce Fowler, and then there was Ralph Humphrey, but then Chester Thompson came at the same time I did. You see, and then that was for the Apostrophe CD. And after that, when we did the Roxy and elsewhere, Don joined us for that. And then after that, it went down from about 9 pieces to 6 pieces. And it was only George Duke, Frank Zappa, Ruth Underwood, Tom Fowler, Chester Thompson, and Napoleon Murphy Brock. And after that, no, Bruce wasn't in that one.
Oh, he was?
No, Bruce wasn't on Helsinki, and and he wasn't on One Size Fits All.
Wow.
Yeah. And after that, that was the end of the Mothers of Invention. After '77, it was only Frank Zappa. It was the last incarnation. I was in the last incarnation of the Mothers of Invention. I remember the end of the group as I remember the beginning of the group, the best in the world. 2000 we started? 2000? Yeah, about 2002.
2002.
2002. Someone needed to represent the music who knew what the music was all about, why it was composed, and how it was composed, and how it should be played properly with everything that's involved in the composition, which is theater. It's very, very incredible music, but also theater is part of the Zappa compositions. And it was beautiful. My first album, well, tell Don, he started first. Yes. What was your first albums?
Absolutely Free.
Yes, the second one, yes.
And then the last album I did was the Roxy and Elsewhere.
But what was the last one you did in the 60s, he's asking?
In the 60s? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, because because you weren't there from 70, 71, 72, 73.
Yes, I was.
What was the last year?
The last year, before 74?
Well, because you weren't there with me on 73 is what I'm saying.
No, but I was in the band with Flo and Eddie in 1971. Just Another Band from LA, with Live at the Fillmore. There was, I think, one other album that we did that came out with Flo and Eddie on it.
And that was the end. What was the end of that? What was that?
The end of that was 71.
Okay.
That was when Zappa got thrown into the orchestra pit and the club in Geneva burned down, along with all our equipment. So that was the end of that group, so to speak.
Okay, and then I started in 1973, Apostrophe, Roxy and Elsewhere, One Size Fits All, Bungle Fury, and Live in Helsinki, and that was the last one of that. And then I came back and did all the background vocals on Shake Your Booty, and then I came back to do the Thingfish. I was the Evil Prince. What we're doing right now is we're doing the entire Roxy CD. Yes. It's two vinyls. Yes. Okay, we're doing all the songs from the Roxy, if we have time. But that's what we're doing now. How did we select it? Because we decided for the next couple of tours to feature one album, one vinyl, one CD, but all of the music on that CD. And basically, Roxy and Elsewhere, we were both on that. So, we're really familiar with that music, and next time we're going to do One Size Fits All. And I was on that, and so we're very familiar with us. But right now we're featuring one whole CD for the tour. It's called Roxy and Elsewhere. That in that order, in the order that we chose. We chose to do that instead. We're not doing Apostrophe. That was the first one for me. We're not doing We're Only In It For The Money. We're doing the Roxy and Elsewhere CD. How did we choose it? Because it's one of the most popular of his albums, based on sales and on fan, fan response. Don and I were the originals, and then we found 3 other guys who were really into Zappa and know how to play Zappa, and they're 3 of the best musicians that on the planet Earth. That's how we chose them, because they were good and they could do it. Because it's not easy to play this music. Every musician can't play this music correctly. Very complicated, but it's it's a lot of fun when you do it right. Practice makes perfect. We're doing this album now, Roxy and Elsewhere, and we're rehearsing One Size Fits all of it, the entire CD. We'll actually be singing Sofa in German. We'll sing German, yes. A couple of months of rehearsals, 2, 3, whatever it takes, until it's right. Now we are on tour. This is our second concert for this tour. Yesterday we were in the Czech Republic. And tomorrow we go to Slovakia, what is it?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
The music is timeless, and the music is so, it's like, that's what happens with great music, that it never goes away, it just keeps going. And although right now some of the only groups that are playing Zappa's music are chamber groups that are from classical musicians that felt that they could play this music because it was complicated. And yeah, there are a few other cover bands, if you will, and they're out there doing it, and so here we are. But we feel that we're doing a better job at it because we were there when it was created. Is that right?
Yeah, and we were part of the creation. Because when Zappa composed music, he composed music based on the people in the band, the personnel and their personalities, and the depth of their talent.
Right.
We miss him. It would be nice if he was here. It was a terrible thing that he had to leave us, but the spirit of him still exists, and we feel it. We know that he's here, and he's, we're encouraged that he is happy that we're doing this, spiritually speaking. A great guy, great friend, great composer, one of the greatest composers one of the greatest guitar players I've ever heard,
Yeah. Well, when I was in the band, he was kind of just learning to play guitar, and he used to hire really good guitar players to be in the band because he couldn't play that well at that time. But he kept practicing, and by the time the Roxy came out, he was really playing great.
Yeah. When I joined the band, he blew my mind. I said, wow. Because when I met him, I didn't know who he was or nothing. And I even asked him, do you play an instrument? And he says, yeah. I said, well, what do you play? He says, guitar. I said, really? Because I had never heard his music when I met him. And when I heard him, I went, wow. And then I watched his ethics, his practice ethics, and he practiced all the time. When he wasn't on stage performing, or he wasn't on stage composing or practicing with us, he was always in the back room. Practice, practice, practice. And you know what they say about practice? It makes perfect. Mm-hmm. You go over and over and over again, and next thing you know, it's perfect.
Well, there's the other saying.
That's that.
How do you get to Carnegie Hall?
I don't know.
Practice, practice, practice.
Right.
Yeah.
He was not a bad guy. He was a good guy, but he was a strict, you might call it a strict disciplinarian, but that's only, striving for perfection. He had an ethic of perfection, and that just because you cannot be perfect, that's no reason not to try.
Yeah.
And so we tried over and over and over again until it was as perfect as it could be, perfect as it's humanly possible.
Yeah. Oh, when I was starting out in the band, three of the musicians could not read a note of music, and they didn't, they were good in their realm, rock musicians. But in order to play Zappa's music, that was amazing because he had to show them by rote, you know, da 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 da, play that, and then, you know, they would play it. But it was a little harder back then than it was when you were in the band, because these guys didn't know anything about 7/4. What's that? 7/8, you know, what 9/8? They had no concept of that at all. But Roy and Jimmy Carl Black, they were both, they were up to it. They, you know, they didn't know what it was, but they could do it. And they, the more they did it, the more easier it was. But it was a little hard.
And when I got in the band, all the musicians in the band were conservatory graduates.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody in the band graduated from a conservatory of music, except me. But I had theater experience. And this is what he needed. As a front man, as a lead vocalist, he needed someone who not only could read music and could sing, but had theater experience to interpret the music for the audience, so they understood what the music was all about. And this is what he hired me for, as an interpreter, as a front man, as a lead singer. And then I also play saxophone and flute. That didn't hurt either. That was a bonus.